members are present.
Welcome to the June 9th meeting of the Michiana Area Council of Governments. And so you're going to do roll call now,
I
James?
will do a roll
All right.
call. I have written down members who are present, though, but then we'll just double check with members who are online to make sure that we have everyone noted. So Commissioner Groninger. Councilwoman Hammond.
Present.
Councilman Belovic. Councilman Wiggins.
Here.
Commissioner Wyrick.
Present.
Mayor Center.
Yo.
Mayor Jenkins. Mayor Stutzman.
Here.
Deputy Commissioner Deitchley. Mayor Mueller.
Present.
Virtually, I believe the folks who I have online, Commissioner Fleming.
Here, yes. Thank you.
All right. And then Mayor Wood.
He's here.
He's here.
I see him.
Not listening to us, apparently.
I just don't see him unmuting. All right.
Here,
All right.
Mayor Wood. I'm Mayor
All right.
Wood. I'm here.
Mayor Robertson.
Mayor
I
Roberts.
figured he would chime in if I tried to take his identity.
Yeah, I know. All right. Mayor Robertson's here. Is that Councilman Root?
Here.
All right. Councilman Root.
Here.
All right. Are there any other members present? Councilwoman Campbell? I think she's here, but all right. Today, just as a note of procedural matters, we will be doing roll call votes. And we will discuss later virtual meetings practice. And so we will work through in the future how many roll call votes we have and ways to manage that. But just today, we will have a number of roll call votes. So I apologize in advance.
Thank you, James.
We do have a quorum.
We got minutes in front of us for May 12th. Are there any questions or a motion?
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion and a second to approve minutes from May 12th. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Sorry. Roll call
Sorry,
vote.
we
Already
unfortunately
forgot.
need to do a roll call vote. Commissioner Groninger. Councilwoman Hammond.
Aye.
Councilman Belovic. Yes. Councilman Wiggins.
Aye.
Commissioner Wyrick.
Yes.
Mayor Center.
Yes.
Mayor Jenkins. Mayor Stutzman.
Aye.
Deputy Commissioner Deitchley. Mayor Mueller.
Aye.
Mayor Robertson. Mayor Wood. Commissioner Fleming.
Aye.
Councilman Root.
Aye.
Only Dave can hear us.
Is that everybody?
That is everybody who's responded.
All right.
Yep, so that motion would carry.
Thank you. Next is, we've got our reports. Chairman's report. Don't have anything today unless you do, James.
I do not have anything until the body of the agenda.
Okay, we'll move into the financial report. Debbie.
Good morning. You should all have the April 2021 financial report. Our cash balance at the end of April was $2,245,934.87. Our total fiscal year-to-date expenses through the end of April was $4,556,813.31, which is approximately 57% of our total fiscal year budget. Our total disbursements for the month of April was $378,973.42. Are there any questions? If not, I'd like to ask for the board's approval of the April 2021 financial report.
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the April 2021 financial report. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Groninger. Councilwoman Hammond.
Aye.
Councilman Belovic. Yes. Councilman Wiggins.
Aye.
Commissioner Wyrick.
Aye.
Mayor Center.
Aye.
Mayor Jenkins. Mayor Stutzman.
Aye.
Deputy Commissioner Deitchley. Mayor Mueller. Mayor Robertson.
Aye.
Mayor Wood.
Aye.
Councilman Root.
Aye.
Commissioner Fleming.
Aye.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Move on to the fiscal year 2022 budget.
All right, in your packet, if you have a printed packet, it will be yellow. Online, you should have a packet as well for this year's, our upcoming fiscal year 22 budget. The first page goes through the various revenues, with the second page then going through expenses. And the third page, which I think is always the most helpful in reviewing the budget, is a comparison of expenses of fiscal 21 to fiscal 22. A few items of note that we'll point out. First is our salaries line item. We are anticipating not only raises there, but we have added at least one staff member due to the CARES Act grant that we received from the Economic Development Administration. So you'll see a larger salaries line items than in the past. Our fringe rate for this year, so we have what's called a cost allocation plan, which is all of our fringe benefits, and then all of our salaries and all of our indirect benefits. And based on what we think will be our direct salaries for the year, the direct salaries cost divided by the benefits then creates these different rates. And so our fringe benefit rate is estimated to go down for this fiscal year. It doesn't necessarily mean that our fringe benefit expenses, in the sense of like how much healthcare cost us, has gone down. It's just the rate that we'll be recovering is less, but it's complicated. I'm glad that I can try to explain that. If you have questions, I'd be able to explain it further, but it's not necessarily a good or a bad thing. It's just the one nice thing was that our anthem policy this year, they did hold us constant. We did not see any large increases for our fringe benefits. Our audit, I have increased the amount for the audit by a larger margin. This is just anticipation. It's trying to estimate. And the reason that I'm doing this is that for the first time, MACOG was not audited by State Board of Accounts this year. We were audited by State Board of Accounts appointing Crow. And so while State Board of Accounts has negotiated SBO rates with Crow, depending on how many hours Crow logs and all of those things, I'm just trying to be cautious and increase that audit amount. Additionally, in the future, because of the amount of CARES Act funds and then just the additional resources that we have, audits may take additional time because of the additional resources we've come into. Going on from there, largely things like telephone materials and supplies, memberships and subscriptions are really just adjusting based on 3-year averages to what we actually hit. Maintenance and repair has gone down more significantly because if you'll recall, during COVID, the height of COVID-19 pandemic, when we were buying gloves and masks and driver protective doors and cleanings and all of those things, that was going into our maintenance line item because of how FTA wanted to see it. While we still anticipate many of those items continuing forward, like the bus cleanings with Cintas, we are still buying rubber gloves and masks as the transit system has a mask mandate through the federal government till at least September. We are decreasing the amount as we just don't think it will be as the same quantity of purchases that we are making in 2020. We are still being, though, proactive on that front. Moving on, printing and reproduction. This is partly an adjustment based on the reduced amount of printing that we've seen through 2020, but also, although it may look like a more drastic cut, it is just putting it more in line with a 3-year average. Same with conferences and trainings. While we highly value making sure that our staff has the ability to attend conferences and trainings and continual education. We're just not anticipating as much conferences, trainings, travel in this fiscal year. And then moving on, some always ask about our equipment furniture line item, why it's so high. This year I have clarified that it also includes vehicles. So it does include our transit vehicles. We are anticipating some purchases of some larger vehicles. And then the last major item, publications, ads, and marketing. We used to run a lot of ads, commercial, PSA kind of items. We just really haven't done that in the last 3 or so years. And so this is just putting that item more in line with what we really have spent over the last 3 years. So not a major cut, just putting it in line with spending. So overall, the budget is shown to be a 2.29% increase, projecting about an $8 million budget. I'd be happy to answer any questions related to the budget. But if there are no questions, I would be seeking a approval of our fiscal year 2022 budget.
James, one question.
Yes.
I may have missed it. Did you go through publications, ads, and marketing?
Yeah, no, it's a good question, and it's a most notable deduct. So in the past, publications, ads, and marketing, we had a budget in 2021 of $90,000. We're projecting for 22 to put it more in line with about $25,000. You'll note in just what we always do when we're looking at budgeting, we look at kind of like what our 3-year, 4-year, 5-year spending averages has been. And you'll note, for example, in fiscal 2021, we spent, we have 1 more month or 2 more months to go, but we've spent $3,400 out of a $90,000 budget. We used to do a lot of TV ad time buys for more public safety messages related to walking, biking, roundabouts, related to Partners for Clean Air. Because of the diversification of the media and how people access media, we have not been buying those large buys as much. All of those videos are on YouTube and we share them on our socials. And so we just have not, in the last 3 years, really been doing those kind of buys. And so we were just trying to put that line item more in line with where we actually do spending, because the majority of that 90,000 was really probably devoted more towards ad time.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
James, just roughly, you're a little over, or a little less than a couple $100,000 more than last year. That the revenue stream to offset that is just from where? Is that from membership dues or?
Yeah, so we've come into additional funding when it comes to, so the question is related to, with the 2% increase in the budget, where do we think those offsets will come from? First, we've come into funding through the Economic Development Administration under the CARES Act. We have probably about $272,000 there that we have in an open grant that still needs to be spent. So I'd say a good portion comes from there, as well as then whether it was CARES or the American Rescue Plan, ARP or ARPA, depending on how you want to call that, we did receive additional funds there as well for the Federal Transit Administration. Both of those, or all of those resources are 100% federal resources. So they are not actually coming from increases to local funds per se, but largely due to additional federal resources. So that's where I would have to go back and look to compare revenues from 21 to 22, but that's off the top of my head, that's where the majority of it would come from. Now, there is a question that I think the council should consider in the future, not today, which is related to the membership. So the way that membership works is that membership is paid by the counties, has been historically for 50 years. I'm not encouraging us to change that, but that is based off of in our bylaws and in our original charter, it says based off the recent census data. So counties pay 35 cents based on population. First, there will be new census numbers. We are not projecting that in this budget because those census numbers are delayed. So in next year, we would anticipate using those new numbers from the 2020 decennial census. So you will see in our 23 budget that memberships will go up, presumably as long as population has gone up. If population has gone down, then memberships will go down. The one thing, though, that I would encourage us to consider is that historically, not per our bylaws, but historically, our operating practice has been that we use the decennial census. And that means that we wait 10 years, and then all of a sudden, after 10 years, when population has gone up, then that 11th year sees this larger increase. What we could be doing is using the 2020, and then in the other years, using the American Community Survey kind of projections and the census projections, so that the membership fee would be tied to population, and it would be a more gradual change, either up or down. And then every decennial census, it would reset based on what the decennial is saying. That's not necessarily something that we need to consider today, but it is probably something from an operating procedures that we should relook at, because just historically, our practice has been to use the decennial. It does not dictate per our bylaws that that's what we must use, but I would just encourage us to think about that. But to answer your question in a short form, no, it's not largely due to local. I would say it's probably more due to increased federal resources.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to to approve the 2022 budget. You want to go ahead and call a roll call? And
know.
Dwight Fish did join, I think.
Oh, Dwight Fish
Yeah.
did that? All right, great. Thank you. I'll note that Councilman Fish has joined, so we'll include him in the roll call. Commissioner Groninger. Councilwoman Hammond.
Aye.
Councilman Belovic. Councilman Wiggins. Commissioner Wyrick. Mayor Center. Mayor Jenkins. Mayor Stutzman.
Aye.
Deputy Commissioner Deitchley. Mayor Mueller. Mayor Robertson.
Aye.
Mayor Wood.
Yes.
Councilman Root.
Aye.
Commissioner Fleming.
Aye.
Councilman Fish.
Yes.
Deputy Commissioner Deitchley. Johnson. Todd, are you joined? I see him, but I can't hear him.
He's raising his hand.
Yeah, he has
Can't
no
talk.
audio. All right,
He said aye.
thank you. All right, that motion carries.
All right, thank you. Move into our secretary's report. Carrie.
Yeah, no modifications this month.
Okay, and we don't have any old business, so we'll move right into new business. James.
We have a few
Ryan
items of new
first.
business. Ryan DeLine will be presenting those items. Ryan, just a note, since we're doing roll calls today, we might just want to present Resolution 25, and then we'll present Resolution 26, and do that as all one motion.
Yeah, sounds good. You'll follow that?
Yeah, I will.
All right, good morning. We have under Resolution 25, two items, A and B in the Fort Wayne District. These are both along US 30 in Kosciuszko County. They are also both the deletions of projects that are currently in the TIP. Item A is at State Road 19 and US 30. This was a preliminary study when it came into the TIP, and it has been removed at this point. And then item B is the intersection at Sylvia's Crossing and US 30, and it pretty much follows the same form and fashion as the last one. So those are items A and B. If there are any questions, I can take those now. Okay.
All right, our next resolution is Resolution 26-21. This is bus rail apportionment. This is for the American Rescue Plan Act funds. You'll recall that the way that Federal Transit Administration works is that when they do an apportionment, they do it to an urbanized area. They do not do it to all of the direct recipients in that urban area. It is then the duty of the Metropolitan Planning Organization, or MACOG, to work through how that apportionment is split. We have a signed agreement on how the process works with MACOG, Southwest Michigan Plan Commission, because our urban area does go up into Michigan and include Niles and Buchanan, as well as in the transit providers of NICTID, Transpo, and Niles. The way that it works, the apportionment comes in, we do a series of formulas, put together various scenarios. We have a call with all of those parties, and then we arbitrate peace. All of the transit providers have selected a preferred scenario, and that preferred scenario is to take the $3,714,700 and to split it so that NICTID would get roughly 1.1 million. You can see the full amount on the screen and on the agenda. Transpo would get 2.3 million, and Niles Dial-A-Ride would get 222,000 approximately. All of those providers, as well as the Southwest Michigan Plan Commission staff and MACOG staff, are in agreement with this scenario, but we'd be asking for the board's approval of this resolution. Since we are doing roll call today, I can answer any questions related to this resolution, but we would be seeking to then approve Resolution 2521 and 2621 in the same motion.
Make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve resolutions 25-21 and 26-21. Is there any discussion?
I have a question about 25, 21. Matt, is it a J-turn at 19?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
So those were other intersection improvements that were potentially going to be J-turns. I believe that they have largely been deleted because of the purpose of the fact that there is the planning study on US 30. But Todd, if I am mistaken, or if you have additional, I know that you might not have audio, but if you can type in if I'm off base, or just thumbs down me if I'm off base, then I believe those are the reason. Yep, that looked like a thumbs up. Yep, so that would be the reason why those were being removed. Yep.
Any other questions? Okay, we have a motion and a second. We're passing both resolution 2521 and 2621. The executive director, please call the roll.
Commissioner Groninger.
Aye.
Councilwoman Hammond.
Aye.
Councilman Belovic. Councilman Wiggins. Commissioner Wyrick. Mayor Center. Mayor Jenkins. Mayor Stutzman. Deputy Commissioner Deitchley. Mayor Mueller. Mayor Robertson.
Aye.
Mayor Wood.
Yes.
Councilman Root.
Aye.
Councilman Fish.
Aye.
Commissioner Fleming.
Aye.
Deputy Commissioner Johnson.
Aye is my.
That motion
you.
carries.
That passes. Move on to other items, James.
All right, in your packet, the other item that we have today that would require a vote is that we have a policy that our legal counsel, Mr. Woods, has crafted related to our electronic meeting policy. So if you're not familiar, I believe all of you are, but the State House passed a bill on how local governments can proceed with electronic participation at meetings in the future. This resolution is in line with Indiana Code 514-15.35, and it goes through those policies and procedures. I want to walk through it briefly, just so that we're all familiar with what it will require. This is not unique in any way, shape, or form. This is going to be very in line with that state statute and very similar to probably what you're doing on your local levels as well. But just a few key items to note that are of importance here. You can see the full policy in your packet and in front of you or digitally. But first, I want to point out that in order for members to, in the future, vote and be considered as a participating member and they're electronically, we have to have 50% of the board in person. So per our bylaws, our quorum count is actually 7. It's 1/3. But if we're doing 50% in person, we have to have at least 10 members here in person. So in the future, we could theoretically have enough people to conduct business in the room, but not allow folks to participate virtually in voting because we don't have enough people in the room. So we will always have to have at least 10 people in the room before we can accommodate electronic voting. So I want to make that clear because it's a little confusing, just in the sense of our quorum count is 7, but we have to hit 10 before you as the 11th can participate electronically, okay? So today, we have more than enough people in person where all of those folks voting online is not an issue, but in the future, that's just something to note. Additionally, members must be seen and heard, so we would have to be able to have audio and video for you to count in that voting. Additionally, just some other items of note here is that a member is not able to attend more than 50% of the meetings in a calendar year electronically, okay? There are a few exceptions to, for example, if you're on military service or all of those other exceptions noted here of how you might be able to participate in more electronically. But for the most part, you're allowed basically up to 50% of the meetings to be virtual. Now, in addition to that, though, a member may attend 2 consecutive meetings by electronic means or virtually, and then has to come on that 3rd meeting to the meeting in person before they get another set of meetings. Okay, so it's like a 2-1-2. Does that make sense to everybody? Right? And then members may not participate electronically in a meeting where, and this doesn't take effect today, this takes effect for future meetings, but where the intent is to take a final action to adopt a budget, make a reduction in personnel, initiate a referendum, establish or increase a fee, establish or increase a penalty, use eminent domain, or establish, raise, or renew a tax. For the most part, many of those actions we don't take, but for the most part, that would mean that the June meeting where we adopt the budget, members are not going to most likely be able to participate electronically unless you're meeting some of those exemptions, as noted earlier. The other item is that you're supposed to inform the chair per our policy, but I would also say that you need to inform Carla that you're wanting to participate electronically, and that you need to do that within 48 hours. Now, our planned procedure here is that we will continue to live stream these meetings, that we will continue to offer that because of the public-facing nature, and that any member theoretically could call and listen in. This policy pertains to if you are wanting to be counted towards voting and counted towards quorum. So we will continue to have electronic offerings, but the question will ultimately be whether or not we can allow you to vote or be part of the quorum count. Additionally, when we do have electronic members that are voting, we do have to take an audible roll call. So in order to help consolidate some of that, we may look at some consent agenda options and some other things to reduce the amount of roll call votes just in the future. It might not be a big item, but just wanted to make you all aware that there might be some changes to the structure of the agenda. I'm happy to answer any questions related to Resolution 2721, which is our written policy establishing the procedures for an electronic participation at meetings. And Mr. Woods, if I got anything wrong, now is the time to clarify. Thank you. You did a great job in crafting it.
I guess before we get into any discussion on the details on this, I would have a question for voting members who are on Zoom today. How many of you are using it just because it's an option versus needing it for one reason or another? Okay, I'm only seeing one hand. I guess, you know, I'm trying to encourage in my community that we get away from Zoom and get back to more in-person meetings because of the value of connecting. And I think it's great that we have the conditions here for who can use Zoom, whether it's military service, medical, other issue items there. But I do think that the 50% a year on Zoom is kind of high. And I would suggest we lower that, but I guess I'm open to whatever.
I mean, theoretically, it would already be lowered because one of those meetings is a meeting that always takes place to adopt a budget. So you're going to have to now you could, if you planned it accordingly, you could get to a way that you would make it perfectly be 50%. But theoretically, if most folks, it seems like, from my interaction and conversation with board members, you know, they're participating electronically today because they don't have travel time in their schedule today to make it to their next meeting, whether that's Zoom or in person. And so I think most of the time it's schedule focused and not pre-planned. And so if you're not pre-planning it, all of a sudden you're going to hit that June meeting and be like, oh, I got to be there in person, and it's not going to be able to count. And then if you've already used your 2 electronic meetings before that, you'd have to really pre-schedule how you would electronically and in person. And I don't foresee that being an issue. But I'm also completely understanding of putting a preference on in person. The one thing I would just say is that my personal preference is I would always love when people are here because we can get a lot done in person as well as then be able to catch up on what's going on. But if I'm faced with the choice between a member not being at a board meeting or having the option to electronically participate, I would at least rather see them electronically participate than not participate at all. That's my personal.
Yeah, and I think that's a very good point. Any other questions, comments? Okay, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second? Is there?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the electronic participation in meetings policy. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, will the executive director please call the roll?
Commissioner Groninger.
Aye.
Councilwoman Hammond.
Aye.
Councilman Belavic.
Yes.
Councilman Wiggins.
Aye.
Commissioner Wyrick.
Yes.
Mayor Center.
Yes.
Mayor Jenkins.
Aye.
Mayor Stutzman.
Aye.
Deputy Commissioner Deitchley. Mayor Mueller.
Aye.
Mayor Robertson. Mayor Wood.
You have a thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Councilman Root.
Aye.
Councilman Fish.
Yes.
Commissioner Fleming.
Aye.
Deputy Commissioner Johnson. All right,
Thumbs
that
up.
motion carries.
Thank you. Move into staff updates.
Yeah, we do have a number of staff updates that we want to make you aware of. The first one, though, we want to introduce a new staff member. So we have a new staff member who has joined our team. We've done some changes to the transportation kind of department. Ryan has shifted into a new position which is our transportation analyst position. And then we are filling Ryan's previous position of short-range planner with Allison Reagan. Allison, if you want to come up and introduce yourself so the board can meet you. Allison has just finished her degree at IU, the O'Neill School. So IU has all of a sudden become the front-runner university among staff. So there's an internal rivalry on staff between IU and Ball State, apparently. But Allison, I'll turn it over to you to introduce yourself.
Yes, hi everyone. As James mentioned, I'll be taking over as the short-range planner. Just graduated from IU with my master's in public affairs, so excited to be here, excited to be part of the team. I just moved here about 3 weeks ago, so still learning the city, but excited to get out in the region and explore. So, thank you.
Thanks. Additionally, then there are a few grant opportunities that we want to make sure that you're aware of, so I'll turn it over to Ryan to start us off there.
Yeah, so the grants on my end start with community crossings that will open July 5th and end July 30th. I'll be helping Allison in her transition. I'll be maintaining asset management and helping your communities with those plans. So therefore, still tied to community crossings as well. So either feel free to reach out to me or Allison in regards to any help that might be needed during these processes. The second grant, not talked about too often. This is the fiscal year 2022 Rail Grade Crossing Funds Grant Program. And it is held through Central Office's Railroad Department. The grant is a safety grant geared towards making crossings safer through either median barriers, lighting, crosswalk signs, and other safety improvements. The total award for that grant is, the top award, is $45,000. There is also a component to this grant for rail closings, and the award there is either in between $20,000 and $50,000. If anybody has any questions, I can take them now. Otherwise, if your staff would like to contact me, I can help them navigate through the GRIP system that is not commonly used. So, all right, thank you.
Next up, we have two grants on the community development side. So the Office of Community and Rural Affairs has a planning grant deadline of July 15th for non-entitlement communities in the region. So that's for utility studies, wastewater treatment studies, things like that. And our second one is from the National Endowment for the Arts, the Our Town program, which is a place-based creative placemaking program. There have been a few communities in Indiana who have done this, but that's an August 5th deadline. If your community would like to be involved in that program either this year or in the future, or the Okra grants, just reach out to either myself, Brett Roberts, or Donnie Ritzma, and we can help you out with those programs.
Next up, we're going to do just a few updates related to plans and programs, just to make sure that folks are aware of different initiatives going on. So Leah?
Yes, so just a brief update on where we're at with our regional Brownfields coalition. Wanted to make you all aware that we've spent about 75% of that grant, and the remaining 25 is really already obligated to existing sites that we're working on, with the exception of a couple phase 1 reports that we could fund. But also wanted to make you aware that we are preparing to resubmit for a second $600,000 grant this fall. And so we're lining up plans for those coalition partners. In speaking to your staff, it sounds like the 4 counties are from that level on board. So just want to verify that with you individually if you have concerns or questions. So those would be the coalition members, but then of course cities, towns, and obviously unincorporated areas would all be able to benefit from the grant funding with that structure. We're thinking of continuing with our target areas of downtown Elkhart, the Argonne Corridor in Warsaw, but for Marshall County and St. Joseph County, we really have an opportunity to shift focus and pick new target areas. It sounded like St. Joseph County staff were really okay with changing focus to the city of South Bend, where previously we were focused outside the city. And then Marshall County, we have some opportunities to look at new projects we can help with. So if you have any ideas, particularly with those 2 counties, let me know. Any questions?
So briefly, we are having our next quarterly tracking meeting. It will be the first of fiscal year 22. We have 51 projects right now in the MACOG region. These are local projects, not including INDOT, so it's a long day, but looking forward to connecting with your staff here soon.
Good morning. The start of Crossway Trails Month is coming up in just a couple weeks. This is throughout the month of July. We have a couple fun activities planned, such as a mileage challenge and a scavenger hunt. And we also received a small amount of funding for Crossway Trails signage throughout the region. If you're interested in seeing what those signs would look like, feel free to reach out to me, and I'd be happy to share that with you. And we hope to see you on the Crossway.
Just an item of note here. You'll remember that 2018, 2019, we worked on a branding effort for what we call the portfolio of our trails throughout our four-county region, instead of calling them something like Michiana Trails. So that brand and mark is the Crossway Trails, which you see here. NIPSCO provided us some funding for the Crossway Trails Month, which will be in July. So you'll hopefully be hearing that brand name mentioned more often and more frequently. We have some promotional items that we'll be rolling out throughout July. But one of the things that I would like all of you to do, or encourage you to do, is to like Crossway Trails on social media. You'll also probably get various invites to like us on social media as well. But you can be the hipster of Crossway Trails, because you can like it before it was cool. Because right now there's like 5 friends, because the Facebook page like just launched. So if you want, you could be really cool and on the cutting edge of liking Crossway Trails on Facebook and Instagram before all of your friends do. So if I could encourage all of you to help us promote that brand, that would be just an item I would greatly appreciate. So just wanted to make you aware. There's not much content on either of the socials yet, but those will be, we have next few months kind of planned out for what those socials will be doing. Our next item of note is just to make sure that the board is aware of another planning effort that is in our request for proposals kind of timeline right now. We are doing the Regional Comprehensive Operational Analysis. That's a lot of words to essentially say we're taking a deep dive into the transit systems of Transpo and the interurban trolley to see how they operate, to see where there are opportunities, where there are kind of strengths and weaknesses, where there are gaps, and how each of those routes work. And just trying to figure out ways to improve those transit systems. This is an RFP right now, request for proposals, that was issued a few weeks ago. The call for submitting questions was due on Friday. We received a number of questions from firms about the proposal. We'll be meeting with all of them in a meeting this afternoon to go over the answers to those questions. And then proposals will be due coming up towards the end of the month. I'm being told, yes, I got that correct. And I'm trying to pull up when that's due, but it will be due towards the end of the month to us. And that's a joint effort that we're doing with Transpo to make, just a good regional transit system between MACOG and Transpo to take a deep dive into those transit systems. And that is due on June 21st at 4 p.m. So June 21st at 4 p.m. Wanted to make you aware of that current procurement opportunity.
Next up is the Disaster Recovery and Economic Resiliency Plan update. If you'll remember, we are using part of the CARES Funds Act to have this plan completed. We had our kickoff meeting in the end of March, our first steering committee meeting in May, and next week we are having our focus group meeting. So you might have got an invite to those. So June 15th, we'll be covering education, housing, and childcare at the regional partnership offices. And then the second day, June 16th, we'll be covering placemaking, health, and regional marketing. Somewhere in Elkhart right now, we have the Aquatic Center. Probably I have a voicemail when I get back to the office later this afternoon. So those are the upcoming events for that project. I also wanted to emphasize the difference between this project and the partnerships Ready. They talk to each other. They are very similar. Most of you are on both steering committees. So how we're explaining it currently, I want to start with the distinctions, is that we obviously have this plan. The regional partnership has the Ready plan. The deadline is different. The Ready application is due on August 31st. We expect to have our plan done by September, so around the same time, but actually a little bit different. And also, the regional partnership, as with regional cities, covers St. Joseph, Elkhart, and Marshall counties, whereas our plan covers the entire 4-county MACOG planning area. Now, the similarities is that our plan really discusses the what and the why of our economic development framework in the region. So how are we approaching issues, what are we doing about those issues, and how do those things need to change moving forward given the pandemic? Whereas the Ready project is much more focused on the how are we going to do those. So the projects, the programs that the region is going to move forward with using those funds to actually take what we learned in our plan and move forward. So that is a confusing process, and we recognize that. So I'm more than happy to take any questions now about this plan, how it talks to Ready, and how we're going to use this in the future. Thank you. Yeah.
Can we get details on the meetings, the 15th and 16th?
As in like locations and such?
Yes.
Yes, so I'm actually talking to our consultants right now, and they'll be updating those calendar invites today. So if you have the calendar invite, hopefully by the end of the day, there's going to be a spot in there that says, here's where it's going to be.
Thank you.
And just an item of note for Ready, I know many of you heard this information already about Ready, but I want to make sure though that as last month the board approved that I would serve on the Ready Steering Committee, wanted to make sure that I give regular updates, pertinent updates about Ready so that all of our elected officials are aware. Just on a high, quick level, Ready is going to have a launch event on June 17th. It will be at Howard Park. So I think that'll be a nice kind of launching off point at a regional cities project. So it'll be at Howard Park, and they will be discussing, Mark Waske will be there from IEDC. They'll be discussing kind of all things Ready and really trying to have a good call to action for the region there. So hopefully all of you can join. But from there, on the back end, when IEDC chooses to invest in this region with Ready funds, the way that the RDA, the Ready Steering Committee, are approaching it right now is, as we go through this planning effort, is that the Ready funds is essentially a $50 million investment. What the approach is that half of those funds would immediately be set aside, so $25 million, for quality of life brick and mortar projects. So when I say that, the examples I think of are trails or Howard Park or Ironworks or the Aquatic Center or the zoo, those kind of larger public benefit projects that we saw in regional cities. The other $25 million would be divided amongst the 5 committees or the 5 strategies or pillars of the regional plan, which are, if I recall all of them, I hope I do, education and workforce, talent attraction, entrepreneurship, industry growth, and diversity, equity, inclusion. Each of those committees will work through their committees of what are the important strategies to come out of those committees, what are the current roadblocks towards achieving those goals of those committees, and then using their $5 million on either brick and mortar projects or on programs. So that's the current approach. Now, there are still a ton of details to come out on Ready, and there's an entire process to work through between now and August, so things may change. But that's the general approach to how the region is planning to proceed with that. So please be involved. Please be there on June 17th. One thing that folks might be curious about, we don't think that project development needs to be at the same place as it was with regional cities. There will probably be a few marquee projects, and then much more focused on themes with various kind of example projects underneath it. But then once the investment is made, that there will be an official call for projects, which will allow longer timeframes for development of your projects. Because to have everything in place between now and the end of August, on local, appropriations, on just private sector investment, it's just not plausible. But the IEDC doesn't want to hold up making these investments, so that's why they've set that timeline. So that's just high-level overview of where READY is at, so that you are ready for READY.
James, or anyone, I don't know if you want to talk at all about the amount of funding available through the Resiliency Plan funds that you're talking about and how the dollar amounts differ?
Can you clarify the question related to?
So you're saying that there's $50 million for Ready Grants specifically?
Yeah.
Are there
Okay.
different funds available for this?
Yeah, so the way that Brett explained it, I think, is a really good explanation, that the Disaster Recovery and Economic Resiliency Plan is really looking at that, many of the aspects that would update our framework that we're currently operating under, things that were exposed during COVID that we need to respond back to, and that READY would be a specific grant program related to the Disaster Recovery and Economic Resiliency Plan. I think there are a number of funds available from the various stimuluses, especially the American Rescue Plan, that we could pursue. There are also other funds across the state, whether you're talking Next Level Connections, Next Level Trails, where we may want to leverage that plan in applying for other funding. READY is just one grant program out of all of the pots of funds that are available.
I guess I was just asking because I didn't hear an additional dollar amount to distinguish the Ready funds from the MACOG Resiliency Plan.
Okay, so, right, the READY's plan is much more of a grant application, right, where we're going for $50 million. Also then leveraging 20% local funds and 60% private funds. The MACOG recovery plan is much more updating a framework and how we approach things, and then pursuing outside resources from federal grants or other areas. So, does that help? Great. Thank you. Thank you for leading the witness.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, that brings us to privilege of the floor. Is there anybody wish to bring something to the board's attention that was not on the agenda?
I have an email that I received regarding MACOG bike maps. I don't know if you want me to email that to someone.
So I was made aware that Elena actually did also receive the same email. So the individual had moved from Wisconsin in a community that was bike friendly, and had seen some products there that they were encouraging us to consider. So we were drafting up a reply, but just in public reply as well. So our MACOG bike map, its intent is focused on longer commute and/or recreation, and that's its original intent. And so the person's critique was that it would be nice if they could see where there are lower volume roads, lower parking roads, where it would be easier to ride to make shorter trips, not necessarily on a network. And we generally, I agree that that kind of product could be nice to have. It is not a product that we currently have. I would say that we wouldn't plan to alter, if we wanted to move forward, we wouldn't plan to alter the bike map, because you need to get at a much smaller scale to see what this person is wanting to see. You needed to see it at a city level, and we're trying to show a 4-county level, and you just don't see that level of detail there. We do have a product that would be similar that we put together in 2016, which was about Elena, bike levels of stress. Would that be a fair summary of that?
Yeah, and there, I believe, was also the bike suitability of roads.
Yes. So we essentially went through and ranked roads on bike suitability, as well as then the level of stress that a biker would have on one of those facilities. So if I'm a young child, do I want to bike on Cleveland, right? Like, I might not feel comfortable with that. Whereas I'm a fearless biker who bikes 75 miles a day, I'm willing to take on many different roads that a child might not. So we do have those kind of ratings, and then the suitability of roads, but we don't necessarily have a direct thing of what this person was inquiring about. I think we could put something like that together for communities if a community is interested in that and then wants to do more with it. Because us just putting together a series of maps of, I don't remember what they were calling it. I can look it up. But us putting that together without, say, the city really wanting to utilize it to change various practices or to change approaches on different things, I don't know that it would be the best resource, but it's something that we could definitely look further into. So that was kind of going to be our reply. We are going to reply to that person directly because I think they sent it to us as well at the same time. So, yep. Hopefully that answers.
Certainly does.
All right, great.
Anything else for privilege of the floor? Okay, I'll close privilege of the floor. And did we have any public comment today?
So during this time, we had asked the public comment by email ahead of time, and now that they can, we have enabled commenting via YouTube chat. So I'm not aware, other than the email that we just discussed, of any emails that came in prior to the meeting, but I will double check and see if there are any YouTube chats.
Yeah. Thanks, James. Can you hear
Yep.
me?
Yeah.
Great. So for the YouTube chat, again, we did enable a live chat. So we just had a welcome to the region to Allison. I welcome her to the staff. That was the only comment on our YouTube channel at this time.
All right, great. So then we have no other public comments, and I don't see any public in person.
Okay, I'll close public comment. And is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 We're adjourned. Thank you all.
Hey, James.